for attending another press conference. Let me just start today by saying how happy we are in the People's Progressive Party to be celebrating Amerindian Heritage Month. And we wish all of our indigenous people a month of reflection, but also a month of appreciation of this integral part of our culture. And we do hope that the original objective of the establishment of the month of September to celebrate our indigenous culture, when it was done by Chedi Jagan, that intent will be appreciated by all of Guyana. Because prior to that, it seemed in Guyana as though indigenous culture was somehow alien or less than equal among other cultures. And we have had to take a long, painstaking road to get to where we are today, where not only our indigenous people are proud to attend these celebrations, but all Guyanese are. And the challenge of equalizing opportunities or treating indigenous people with respect was not only a cultural challenge, it was also an economic challenge, because historically and particularly in the post-independent period under the PNC, we saw a general policy or at the national level, a deterioration of our well-being for all Guyanese, but more so for Amerindian people. And there was a clear divide between the coast and the hinterland in terms of opportunities, in terms of jobs, access to social services, but more particularly about the future of the children who were born and grew up in the hinterland. The most that they could have aspired to, and this was as late as the 90s, was to complete primary education, because there were no opportunities or very little opportunities for secondary education, much less tertiary education. And we, at the beginning, with very limited resources to transform Guyana, I do not have to repeat what everyone in Guyana knows now, that when we took office, 153% of revenue went to service external debt alone. Today, when we left, it was 4%, 4 or 5% of revenue. But even with those dire economic circumstances, we had to, as a first priority, try to overcome this gap, even as we try to improve the lives of people who lived on the coast. And we started off by expanding the primary school network in the hinterland communities. We built several secondary schools with dormitories, almost 13 secondary schools with dormitories, so that kids who did well at the primary level could have gone on, had a place to stay, and they could have had secondary education. We then expanded the scholarship program for hinterland people to almost like 400 or 500 per year to come to places like the Ghana School of Agriculture and GTI and the University of Ghana, and many to go abroad. As you've heard us mention before, in the early 2000s, like around 2001, we had a single Amerindian doctor. By the time we left office, you had over 100 medical doctors alone. And then we created opportunities to integrate our indigenous people into the nursing profession, into the police force and the army, in public life generally. This is just on the opportunities for education. In the health sector, we built health huts in almost every community. And many people who live on the coast sometimes don't appreciate how hard it is, because you have a tiny health hut, but the next village might be 20 miles away, the next village. And to get to, say, if you live in Region 9, to let them where there is a hospital would take you probably maybe 8-9 hours to get there. That is if you have transport, because there is no ready transport. So improving health care, even at the primary level within the villages itself, was very important. And that's why in each village we said we'll build a health hut, and we will also train a community health worker. And we identified over 400 community health workers and trained them to offer primary care at the level of the villages. We ensured they had drugs at that level. And then we upgraded the regional hospitals, let's say at places like Mabaruma and Lethem and other places, Moruca, so that they could have better services there. We even medevac people out for different kinds of operations. Like when it got complex, the medical care that was needed got complex, we medevac people out from the hinterland. But that was crucial, and the availability of drugs is also important. We did an outreach into Region 9, and we went up to several of these remote villages, up in the mountains in Region 9, and Karas, by all these areas, even big centers and small ones. And the people took us in, the health workers, and showed us nothing in the cupboards. They have cupboards where they should have basic things. And I'm not talking about complex form of medicine like insulin and all of this stuff, just basic stuff. And they don't have that. And why I said about coastal people, they don't have a pharmacy to go to. You can't, even if they had money, and it's very difficult, they can't get to a pharmacy. So if you don't have it there, then you're not going to get it at all. And therefore, we are very, very concerned about what has happened, the deterioration in health care in the hinterland. On the Amerindian land title, land is a big issue. I see the disparaging statements made by many people, Eric Phillips and Keith Scott calling Amerindians avaricious, etc. And even Sidney Alikok, as an apologist now at the Heritage Month, trying to make some apology for the government not moving forward. But the land issue has been a historic promise that was made in the independence period and by the PNC in the beginning. And we came into, but they were never titled a lot of their lands. This was in the early 60s. They just did not give the title. And so under the PPP, we worked very hard because we had limited resources to complete the demarcation in some areas, and we gave out more titles. And so the land title lands moved from about 6% to 14% of Guyana. We left also over $10 million and an Amerindian land title unit to continue the work. And this government dismantled that unit. Now they want to reestablish it because we're getting close to elections. But this was one of their promises in the last election, to accelerate the process. They have not titled one single new village in the forest, although we left them with over $2 billion to do this in the program, with a unit in place. So they've just totally neglected that too. And that is why I'm saying we can't just celebrate the culture. We also have, if we're going to move forward, all of our people, regardless of their race or regardless of where they live, they must have an opportunity to prosper and to do well. And this is what we're committed to doing. And therefore, this month, as we celebrate Amerindian heritage and this rich part of our culture, although we say Amerindian culture, this is part, we are born here, all of us. This is, you know, we're not born in Madeira or Africa or India or where, this is Guyana. This is our birthplace. So this is part of our culture too, because this is part of our history, our culture, etc. And therefore, I urge all Guyanese to go out and celebrate this culture, familiarize yourself with the different tribes. Many people don't know we have 9 different tribes, and the rich culture and the folklore, legend, the stories, all of these things. We should all become aware of it. And the great role that indigenous people play in the preservation of our legacy to national legacy, which is our border and also our natural resources. Because for thousands of years, they have lived in a very synergistic way with the forest and with resources. So I hope that we can all do this together, all Guyanese. And if you have an opportunity to, where you don't have to be Amerindian, please go down and partake in the celebrations. This brings me to the next issue that has been the one that is on the minds of all Guyanese. And this is, when are we having elections? The question, when would we have elections? And if we leave it to APNU, we will not have elections till next year, and even then, they may not want elections. They are mortally afraid of elections. Let's get that very clear, that they are they're terrified. Terrified. It's like you see ghastly pails come over them when you mention elections. No. So the whole demeanor changes. I had a little pleasant run-in with a few of them at the cricket and yesterday, and even the word once you mention elections, you see like people becoming a little unhinged. The reason flies out of their head and everything else. So let us be clear about that. So they will do whatever it takes to delay the elections with the hope that they can go out in this so-called outreach using taxpayers' money, use Chronicle and Lincoln Lewis and the others to polarize our country once again, hoping that somehow they will change the outcome or their fortunes, electoral fortunes on the ground. So it's no secret that that is their desire. But in doing so, they're trampling on the Constitution and a court ruling. And Guyanese must assess the APNU based on how they relate to that document, the Constitution. And I've 100 times before I said, if I can't trust you to obey the law, to respect the Constitution, how can I trust you to fulfill any of your promises to me? And that is, as every day passes by, more and more in the minds of Guyanese, that question must pop up. That if you can't respect rule of law and Constitution, then what else are you going to do? And thankfully, they're becoming more isolated. I know from the international community, because I've been meeting with the international community, and they're saying constitution and you have to have elections. And Ghanaians are saying the same thing. But we have the president saying, continuing with his excuse, he's waiting on GCOM. So yesterday we issued a press release, and the press release dealt with several things, but this is after seeing once again the latest permutation. So 2 weeks ago, the Secretariat, and let me say something, that the Secretariat of GCOM, or individuals within that Secretariat, seem to find a happy coexistence with the APNU commissioners at GCOM. It is uncanny how the documents they prepare for discussion at the commission level, how closely they reflect the position of Congress Place and the 3 APNU commissioners there. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a proposal that went to the commission from the Secretariat that saw elections, claims and objections starting November 25th, and elections being held that's the 25th of November, and elections being held on the 27th of April next year. Then last week, that got revised downwards to the 19th to start claims and objection on the 19th of November, and elections on 23rd of March next year. So in all of this, the timeline, they're just expanding the timeline for this so-called merger of the data. That is being used as a new excuse, the merger of the data. And that's taking all the time, because you can start today to go to what they're going to start on the 19th of November and go to claims and objection. So let us see a couple of things that they're saying. So just to give you an idea of what Amna Ali has been saying, before I come to once again going through the essence of our concerns, because we're not going to fall prey to the propaganda and get into a tit-for-tat with Congress Place, because we know what their game is. So this is what Amna Ali says. She said that I said that the list will further contaminate the NRR. That was in a press release, but I never said that at my press conference. That's one. 2, the list does have dead people on it. The list does have people who died. So to that extent, the list is bloated with the dead people. But did you need a house-to-house exercise to remove the dead people? When GCOM has currently the authority to remove dead people on the voters list, all they have to do is to get the death certificates from GRO. If you've had 5,000 people who died, publish the names of the people, and then remove them from the voters list. Because we will check, all the parties will check that these people actually died. They would go house to house and check it. That's a work for the parties, and remove the names. And then you clean the list of people who have died since the last elections or a little bit earlier. So then you can remove that from them contaminant on the list. That's what they're saying. It's easy. You can do that. So she said, how is it if you merge information from house-to-house registration to what exists as the NRR, you're going to have contamination? Is it that he's admitting that the NRR is corrupt? Is it that he's admitting that the NRR is no good? I'm sure silently he is. This is Amnali. But nobody pays attention to Amnali, but today I want to give her some attention. So let me just say it, dear Amnali. The house-to-house exercise was started by GCOM for the purpose of replacing the NRR, the National Register. Dear Amna, hoping you're listening. For the purpose of replacing the NRR. So everyone was being registered. The plan was that those who were not registered, for one reason or another, if they couldn't find you at home, you fell ill, you've gone abroad on vacation, you're in the hinterland working, etc., would not have been on the new NRR because it would have been totally replaced. The Chief Justice ruling said, you cannot remove people from the NRR if they migrated, if you can't find them, or for any other reason except those outlined by the Constitution, which is insanity or that matter. Insanity, basically, because once you're 18 years and above and Guyanese, you have a right to be on the list. And there are a couple of other issues outlined in the document. But basically, outside of those two, insanity. So the entire exercise was unconstitutional in purpose. So if you have 370,000 people now, and you have of the 370,000, 368,000 who are people already on the voter NRR, and you can't replace the NRR, how can you merge the 370 with the NRR? That will give you close to over 1 million people. And you'll have the 368,000 of the 370,000 who are already registered. Their names will be on the NRR twice. It will contaminate the NRR. Their names will be there twice. So the idea is only the new people of the house-to-house exercise you're trying to find out. Who are the 2,000 new people? But you don't have to merge the entire database and take 3 months. First of all, prepare it, because now it's in form, registration form. Input it, then prepare to find these 2,000 new people. You can do it easily otherwise, and in the claims and objection period, the 2,000 people could easily be re-registered or registered. So, not that they're going to be disenfranchised, they just be a bit inconvenienced, and it's easy to do that. But they want to merge create a new data set, and then merge the two to find out who the others are. And we pointed out that even if you do a software that recognizes duplicate names and eliminate them, if they make an error in the inputting or in the enumeration of your name, then it will read, the computer will read that person, the same person, but with an error in the name because it's spelled differently, as a new person, and merge that person over to the NRR, and you contaminate the NRR. And so this is what we're trying to get over. But their insistence on this merger leads me to believe that there may have been more wickedness done with the house-to-house registration, because remember, the GCOM's manual said that it must be done every registration in the presence of scrutineers from all the parties. That That entire exercise was done without ours. And we've heard some cases where the enumerator sat with the APNU people and filled out some forms. So I think that's why they want to hang on to this merger, hoping that somehow they will sneak those people over into the NRR and contaminate it. This is precisely why they're hanging on to this merger. So it's easy. So to get the new names, get everyone on the NRR, have all Guyanese the right to vote. Once, not twice, and we can clean out anybody from the illegal house-to-house activity where the purpose was illegal. We can clean that out through another thing. So we are saying, register the people, register them, the new persons through the claims and objection, and then the law provides for a house-to-house visit of each of the new registrants by the RO before their name get onto the database, the NRR. So you don't have contaminated data being transferred into a verified database. That is what we're saying. And so they've gone to they want to now cross-match the fingerprint. At the end of the claims and objection, that is something that is necessary. You have to check all the fingerprints, cross-match, to see that you don't have duplicates. That will come at the end. But before then, they want to do that now too again and spend nearly $350,000 of our money in a lengthy process that will only tell you if they're duplicate fingerprints, not who the new registrants are. This current fingerprint matching exercise is a waste of time to delay once again the elections, because you still have to cross-match when you finish the claims and objection. That's the final test of the list. So you saw our press release yesterday. It says it's a useless activity that will cost us a lot of money. I saw released, they have in one of the newspapers, and I think it's there, that to print the new ID cards will take us 8 weeks and cost us $525,000 US dollars, over 100 million. That is what it will take. So why do this now? We don't need, Claudette Singh, the Justice Claudette Singh herself pointed out when she shortened the term of the PPP through the elections. Remember, I went through this before. We had an agreement APNU and the PPP to use the ID card for people to vote. And after the election, APNU went, that's time PNC, and challenged it as unconstitutional. And Justice Singh ruled that it was unconstitutional to prevent people from voting because they didn't have an ID. And so since then, you can vote with an ID card, a passport, or even if you don't have a document, they administer an oath to you. So why now spend 8 weeks and 100 million in producing an ID card and delaying the elections when it's not necessary to vote? You can use the old ID card, you can use your passport, or if you don't have any document, once you're on the list and your picture is there, remember your picture is on the voters list. Then they administer the oath to you. So this is again wasting our time. Wasting time because they want to delay. The commissioners from APNU plus some members of the Secretariat are putting up every single hurdle to prevent us having elections in a timely manner. And that is why we said, until now, almost since they should have been ready since March 21st, but until now they haven't started the preparation for elections. Because the preparation for elections starts with the preparation to get the OLE, the official list of electors. And that starts with extracting a preliminary list of electors from the NRR, posting it all over the country, getting the claims and objection period done where people can register who are not on the list, do their transfers, etc. then the production of a revised voters list, and then you can have nomination day, and then go on to prepare the official list of electors. Simple. They haven't started that as yet. So we think they're starting to prepare for elections. We've had meetings after meetings. They haven't even started as yet, because it starts with the extraction of the PLE. And that is why we're pressing the case. So suddenly we've heard about PPP, our largest collecting caretaker rubber stamp prime minister. He now says, oh, the PPP lost votes in 2001 and 2011, 54,000 votes, right? He's more concerned about the fortune of the PPP. They just got a trashing at local government elections by 50,000 votes, the gap. And he's not concerned about that. With the two parties combined, we got over nearly 50,000 votes more than them, APNU and AFC combined, in the local government elections. They won the elections with less than 5,000 votes in 2015. And he's concerned about the PPP losing votes, and something about the Jaganites. And by the way, I didn't address that. He said that Cherry Jagan announced in the Rupunoni that he will be the next presidential candidate. If you can find any such announcement from Cherry Jagan, written anywhere except Nagamootoo saying that, I will resign from politics today. I give up everything. I'm exiting politics. This is a pathological liar. This guy talks about himself all the time. He can't help but talk about himself. And he lies pathologically, and he believes the lies that he tells. I told you already that Bill Carr's son wrote about him in his book, the lecturer at the University of Ghana, and he said he was going to fight a war in Vietnam, and he got stuck in Mongolia and all of that stuff. Lying to every single person. So he did a detailed calculation. You remember he couldn't get the 33, 34, right? And he's doing complex calculations now about how many, and he came up with a large number, 54,292. A number, Nagamootoo, imagine. I wonder if he's calculating the largest, that he's, with such fidelity that he's paying to the PPP's fortunes. You know, call the elections. If you believe that we can't win the elections, you call the elections now. If you believe that the PP can't win and stuff like that, you're earning on great ground and we lost votes and everything, call the elections. But these are the parasites that we have feeding off of the taxpayers every day, and just lengthening the time that they're illegally in office to continue the feeding frenzy that they have now. So we have seen this, that we have to keep working. We'll keep pushing for elections. We'll keep pressing because they're just using the time now for another set of illegal activities. I saw all of these invitations, glossy invitations going out to activities all the time, hoping they can recover. One such activity is the president meeting with the miners today. And how shameless can you be? This caretaker, I shouldn't say president, caretaker president. I must preface that by saying caretaker president. The caretaker president hosts a luncheon using our money, taxpayers' money, to meet the miners' state house today, when you go back and check the statements from the miners, for several years now they're trying to secure a meeting with him, and he snubbed them. His government has put in place some of the worst policies that have devastated the mining sector, and today he's meeting with them because we're in election season. He's going to address the GMSA shortly, and tell them about, oh, value added. I want value added again. And he's put a tax on exports. He's meeting with the manufacturers, you know, going to meet with them and address them. And his government has put a tax on exports, put VAT on electricity and water, two of the biggest costs of their input. That's for manufacturing. And they have put VAT on all the building materials. So if they have to build factories and everything else, they now have to spend more. Their entire costs have gone up. Taxes have gone up. And he's going to meet with them and say, trust me again. This is what we have going on. So this is an utterly shameless government. Goes on and without batting an eyelid, they just repeat the lies and they repeat the promises as though they don't have a record. The same things that they said in 2014, but they don't understand it's a different reality. People have seen them now. So I would not, in the same vein, what I spoke to you about, they're going to start coming up with excuses as to why they lose the elections. This is typical APNU all the time. Oh, so PPP doing fake birth certificates in Letem because their regional chairman for PNC told them this. You know, as I said before, the fake birth certificate that they found in Letem was one of the Haitians who dropped it off when he went across to Brazil, and it was issued by Felix. So maybe that's the one that they're talking about, because it's such ridiculous, you know, that such a lame thing that PPP now giving fake birth certificate. And we told people not to register, and we're giving them fake birth certificates to register them. And we told them don't register because it's a waste of time. It's lame, and Chronicle is being used to do that. Chronicle again stirs up all of these things. They're running features about who got killed in the crime wave. I've dealt with this extensively. If they do a commission of inquiry, some of the people who will go to jail sit in the cabinet now. They sit in the cabinet now, the ones for supporting criminal networks in this country. They now sit in that cabinet. Some of them are lawyers, and many of them used to visit those communities. Why do you think they don't want a commission of inquiry? Because a lot of people know things and they're just waiting. They're just waiting, and that's why Granger avoided it and went to Lindo Creek. Doesn't want to have a comprehensive commission of inquiry into that period. So Chronicle goes and, you know, finds disaffected people or the crime wave. Every one of those families should go and picket Granger and ask him for the commission of inquiry, that he should have an international commission of inquiry into what took place in that crime wave. But Chronicle stirs it part of creating the impression, well, you know, the rumor that we were engaged in killing out young Afro-Guyanese. Although Felix was in charge of the police, Gary Bess was in charge, and Collins were in charge of the army. They were in charge. You're all with them now, and we gave instructions to Felix and Gary Bess and Collins to harm young Afro-Guyanese. In the same vein, trying to raise ethnic sentiments again, because that's all they're going on now. They're trying to polarize our people. So we have the 1823 monument. We built this after consultation. We have one, and this is the one. So we have a ceremony there. This is the one that was built by the seawall to commemorate this ghastly event in our history. And now the government has groundbreaking. In the morning, they're commemorating one, and in the afternoon, they have a groundbreaking ceremony for another monument for the same thing, 1823 memorial. So we have one already. But this is not designed really to celebrate the struggles of our ancestors, African ancestors. This is designed, trust me, some new person will get a contract, they'll steal half of the money for building this monument, if they get a chance to. And this is designed to polarize our country again. They're going to get an opportunity to once again go and talk, roll out the Clive Thomases and the David Hines and the others to raise the specter of race. You are going to celebrate our ancestry. When you already have a monument to do that, why not take the money and ensure that the descendants of our ancestors who struggled so hard for the country have a job now, that they have jobs, etc. That's the best way of ensuring that we celebrate the legacy of our ancestors who fought for a better life for us. Ensure that the money is spent on creating jobs for the young kids in South Georgetown or somewhere else, or Linden, not tell them that they're lazy and they're spending all their money at the Guinness bar. That's a patronizing attitude that you have. And you're gonna, this is all designed to polarize our country. It's not necessary. We can do a little plaque, etc. They have a big ceremony now. It's a chance to polarize once again, when you should really be spending the money on the descendants so that they can live a great life. That's what our ancestors fought for. So then the whisper campaign again. So I saw the Heath Retimaya saying, I think I have his name right for the first time today, he went to the meeting with Felix, but guess what, that meeting that took place at Critchlow Labour College? They patted down the security, everybody, to ensure that they didn't have their phones, so it couldn't be recorded. People, phones, they had to place their phones separately, and they were patted down by the security to ensure that that happened. And what does a SARA official have to do in a meeting with migrants to Guyana? What does he have to do there? But it's all part of the peddling of racism there. They told the poor African students, you all better register and vote for us because the PPP will throw you out if they get into office. We're not interested in throwing out no African student here. We want them to come here. They come here, they work, they spend their money, and we want to promote offshore education. So we're not interested in throwing out anybody. But that is what, using the specter of race again. And we've seen James Bond and all the others rolling this out on the ground once again. He and the one in Linden, Figueroa, and the others. So this is a pattern we've seen, a pattern, and we must fight it off. The ERC seems to be asleep. ERC seems to be asleep. I'm a great supporter of the Ethnic Relations Commission because they have the powers to do something about it. But they're not. They're not. They're watching attempts to polarize the country right before their very eyes by public officials using state funds and state assets like the Chronicle. And not a word is coming out from them. And then they rolled out another set of people. So it's people like Lincoln Lewis. Lincoln Lewis, the fossils are being rolled out now, too, as I said before. So the fossils are being rolled out to criticize us again. I just wanted to, it's a funny thing. I think I left my Lincoln Lewis, what he said. But it's so interesting. He's writing the daily letters. Oh, Jagdeo must be held accountable. So he said to, this is what Lincoln Lewis said about me. This PPP renegade is a destroyer, a threat to humanity. I'm a threat to humanity now. Governance and Guyana's stability. So imagine I'm a threat to the existence of the world now, to humanity. Life on earth is threatened because Jagdeo is here. This is, they're going mad as the prospect of losing power. gets to their head, man, and all because I said he has a history of betraying the workers that he represents. I know things, I only spoke about what he did in the bauxite industry, but even at OMI, you recall, go and read the history. They took resources from the company to buy vehicles and stuff like that and sold out the workers there. They became company union reps and not representing the workers. So he says, I am adopting a statesman like I should adopt a statesman like I'm into ghetto politics, cuss out, break down. I don't want to break down anything, Lincoln, but I'm not going to stop exposing fraud like you and the others who've been living off of one thing, polarization. Polarization. They thrive, this bunch of fossils. They love if our country and our people are divided, so they can find a place for themselves to talk about it. They want our people to remain divided. The history and all of that has been a troubled one, but they're against people of every race coming together, working together. Their biggest nightmare is to have Afro-Ghanese joining the PPP, which we're working hard to get done. That is their nightmare. They're losing sleep. They're getting up at night and screaming out the nightmares. Screaming loud, loud, loud. I heard the neighbors even hearing them. This is the sort of thing to say I'm a threat to humanity now. It tells you the full-fledged certifiable madness now. So this thing. And then I see the Go Invest. So on the PR end, I just wanted to say you should check this Guyana tip for another find from Petroleum Economist. And so Go Invest is talking about how Tullow will make another announcement soon. So Tullow seems to be in cahoots with Go Invest to talk up everything. The government is very chummy with these oil companies now, because I suspect their PR, the oil companies' PR fits in with their line. And so they're feeding off of each other. So I see that the country will double its gross domestic product, etc. And again, what about the jobs? And by the way, the gentleman from Go Invest, we know a lot about what's happening at Diamond and the fake names penned into the plots of land there that are being sold, the names that are penned in there. So at some point in time, I'll talk about that too, what's going on through Go Invest and the wanton giveaway, corrupt giveaway of lands at Diamond there too. So just have a chance to look at this and see that Tullow is once again, they haven't even made the normal thing is, particularly for global companies, when you make the fine, you announce it. They are announcing the fine even before. So I don't know what this means, if they just want to try to get the good news out or to play the market, But they're finding a healthy partner with the government. Thank you.
So you make several references to how hard you're working to get more Afro-Ghanese support.
Sure.
You have a lot of people on the ground. How are you coming along with that? Can you measure your success thus far? Also, are you in communication with the diplomats still? And do you expect, they're quite quiet now, do you expect anything different after September 18th? And the last question, your contract with Mercury was supposed to have ended on June 5th. Was there a renewal?
Yes, I think I mentioned that already at the press conference. Yes, we've renewed that contract. That's one. Yes, I've been in touch with the diplomatic community. They're concerned about what's happening. I know that they are working. I'm not at liberty to say what they're doing, because you should ask them directly. And I know they're concerned about the September 18th deadline. on the efforts to ensure that more Afro-Guyanese join the party, we have seen a significant shift in terms of applications, people joining, but more so people who have become volunteers and who are working now on the ground, carrying our message of hope for all Guyanese and working for all Guyanese in the next PPP government. And so the volunteers, and even if that is a first step in joining the family, coming in and volunteering, I greatly appreciate it as well. And we've seen large numbers of people. And people more and more every single day. Yesterday I met with some vendors who came here to work off the road. They're not going to join their party. They're not going to even be volunteers. They're looking to make a living. But increasingly, people of every race are coming to our office to ensure, because they see us as part of the solution, And you hear the horror stories about neglect from ministers who come out and make these promises. They never see them again when they're on the ground doing the outreach. They tell people, oh, come to the office, we'll see you there. When people show up, they would never meet them. That sort of thing. They are arrogance once again.
Okay, sir, from your statements and from the statement that came up, that was released from yesterday, about there being several meetings, but still you can't come to an agreement with GCOM. And you said during your press conference that GCOM has not even officially started preparing for elections. But there is a chairman. Did you expect a different pace following the appointment of the chairperson? And is the PPP, when you try to reach out, try to have a meeting directly?
The thing is that we have to allow the chairperson to, or that's what we stayed away. You notice that we ended the protest for a while. And because we wanted to give the chair an opportunity to familiarize herself with what's going on. But what you have in there is a commission that has to overcome the legacy of the illegalities and the sloth of the past. And even now being trapped by that activity. And the misinformation. So when the commission says in a press release, says that the Chief Justice ordered the use of the data to be merged, that was a lie. The Chief Justice never said that. Not nowhere in her ruling. So what you have, I'm trying to picture the job of the chairperson. So I have 3 commissioners who come to a meeting all the time seeking to delay, to push timeline. And then my technical advisors, who should be the secretariat, keep putting before me proposals that push the elections into next year. And so it must be very difficult for her to find an accommodation, because I'm sure maybe she doesn't want to dismiss their concerns just like that. But she also said, and I saw the statement that came out after the meeting with the private sector from the commission, that she has a role. She will try to hold elections in the shortest while possible, and also that the Constitution is important. So at some point in time, she'd have to make the tough decisions. At some point in time, the tough decision, which is that we're going to respect the Constitution and stop the prevaricating by the commissioners on the other side to delay things. Every meeting is about extraneous things. When we meet again, the secretariat then gives her, and she has to say to the secretariat, we're getting this done by this date. You better go and work now to ensure that the timelines fit in. You get it done. If they could have accelerated the house-to-house Look how they were rushing overnight to get it done. Even when it was deemed illegal, they continued to register people who were registered before. And when the Chief Justice had already deemed it illegal, you can't remove it. And they were rushing to do that. If they put their minds to it, they can get things done quickly. They can get things done quickly without compromising quality either. So at some point in time, she has to say that. Though I respect the Constitution, I respect the ruling of the court. Elections should have been held since March. We're getting ready for elections. The apex court said GCOM must respect the Constitution too. And we're getting this done by this date or this month. And you go back now in the Secretariat and bring me a proposal for this. Because if he relies on the tree and the GCOM all the time, or the Secretariat, if they're part of the plot, then you never have something for discussion that is meaningful and that respects the Constitution. So that's how I see it. Yes.
What is a date your party is willing to accept for elections?
I don't want to trade dates here, but elections, as we believe, way before the end of the year, it's still possible, way before the end of the year. No, I don't want to be more specific, but before the end of the year, way before that too. Because it's still possible if you, without compromising on any of these statutory requirements. Thank you.